So Andre, I came into his life when he was 4.5 months old, so I don't know a lot about prior other than what the doctors were able to tell me, which is initially minimal when you're a foster mom. But he was diagnosed in utero with hypoplastic left heart syndrome, and he had a pretty severe case.
And I believe he was about 4 months old at the time. He was on oxygen. He had like over 18 different medicines being pumped in through multiple IVs. He was connected to basically every cord you could think of. We walked in there and saw this, precious boy who just wasn't being able to be held very often or frequently, and you could just tell he had these big brown eyes. He just kind of looked up at us, and we're like, okay, this is what it's like. So, we sat down and got to spend some time with him. We spoke with the doctors and the nurses. So it was a definitely interesting, but also a little bit scary time, just kind of seeing everything that he was going through.
When we were thinking about adopting him, they kind of want to really let you know everything that could happen. And so they just said because of some of the lack of oxygen to his brain, his oxygen sats were really low when he had the Fontan. And then just the fact especially because he coded after one of the surgeries and they actually cooled his body for 72 hours, they said he was through so much. And then on top of that with the seizures, they were like, we don't know. Gosh, when they found out we were thinking about putting him into school, and it was through the Fontan Clinic, they were like, hey, we have this program. Is it something you'd want to be a part of? And I was like, yes, because I don't know what I'm doing, So that's kind of what it was. And then we got a call and it went from there.
It's something that's not offered around here. And ultimately we want to give him the best care and everything he needs, not only to be healthy, but to set him up for success, hopefully later in life. So it's something that we are more than happy as parents to make as many trips down to Milwaukee as possible, just for not only his health benefit, but for just setting him up for success for the future.
He wasn't learning quite right, and so I touched base with Nicole and was like, he's not getting all his letters. I think he had learned 3 in the whole from September to March, whenever they shut down. And so they were like, we need you to, really look at this.
The EAPP customizes recommendations for each individual, and that's because they all have different histories. They all have different medical histories, complex needs, and the trauma that they've gone through is very different at the same time, and how that impacts them neurodevelopmentally. They're all going to have different deficits. So we can't just have a cookie cutter plan in place or recommendation. We need to make sure that we're meeting what their specific needs are.
So after his neuropsych testing, she was like, I think he needs speech. Because he was having problems pulling forth words, which again, as a mom, I was like, he talks fine. He's really articulate. I would have never known that was a speech intervention. And so then the school was like, oh, okay. And then they tested him and yep, now he has speech.
So it's nice just to have that additional support, that additional knowledge, and maybe even to answer questions that you may have. I know many people turn to Google or to look at other sources, but it's nice to have a professional and someone that we can rely on and help make you feel comfortable or answer questions that you may have.
I'm in nursing, so if you use medical terminology, I get it, but I'm not in teaching. And so when they're talking about IEPs and 504s and the different testing and this and that, I just sometimes I'm like, wait, what are we talking about? Whereas Nicole's like, okay, this is what it is. And a lot of times after a meeting, I'll shoot her an email and be like, well, what did you think of that? I have a question on this. And she just clarifies for me. And if there's something that doesn't seem quite right or where Andre potentially needs more help, then she will be like, let me check with this, or I'll check back with his doctor regarding this. And she gets back to me. So she kind of coordinates quite a bit. The thing, especially if you have a child that has some medical stuff, well, I've got this, I'm okay, I can do this. And you know what? You probably can, but you don't have to, is one of the things. And then the other thing is early intervention is key. So if that's not your forte, if you don't know everything about, special education or occupational therapy or speech therapy, I'm in the medical field and I didn't even think about speech therapy being an issue for him bringing forth words. I didn't even think that was an issue. So if you don't know all of that stuff, then you could be easily missing things on your kids where they could get early intervention, and I feel like then that's going to help them later on down the line and everything's in place, versus waiting to a point of frustration, or you see that your kid's starting to fail or their self-confidence is dropping or they feel different. So I think any kid could use it, honestly, and any parent. If you can have something taken off your plate, why wouldn't you?